I'm Leonanicholeblack and I am a tarot therapist and astrologer. I am really excited to be a part of this community project, Arcana Brick Road, which involves a number of tarot readers across the world who are coming together to give an explanation of different major arcana cards. Thank you so much to Janelle Jones Tarot for passing the flag on to me. And of course, shout out to Primordial Flowers Tarot, who is the originator of this project. It is really exciting. So I was tagged in to cover the Devil card. Very, very juicy. I've got a couple of illustrations here, two different tarot decks for you to have a quick look at. So I would like to start out maybe at the rudimentary level and take the card. Let's at least have one showing. Take the card at face value to begin with. So just looking at the Devil card as an archetype, we're normally thinking about fear, entrapment, and addiction. Okay, so this is when we first see the card. This is the correlation that we have in terms of an experience that we might be having in our lives or that other people might be reflecting back at us. Of course, the Devil is a really big figure in popular culture, and so whenever we see this card, we come with our own ideas and connotations. When you read for clients, if you're a tarot reader like myself, then people are normally a little bit afraid when they see this card. Of course, I'm always there to bring context and peace through the understanding and the meanings here. So what I want to do is just take three different ways that we can understand or think about this card when it comes up for us, either in a personal reading, in a collective reading, or when we're reading for others. Firstly, I want us to think about how we, rather than being the victim of the devil down here, can actually become the devil figure in our own lives, okay? Some accountability. We've just come out of Capricorn season, so of course Capricorn is associated with the Devil card, so some self-accountability here. I also want us to think about what we can gain in terms of experience when we're made to confront the devil and its legacy in our world. Okay, so what's happening in terms of vices and systems and structures, and what can we do? How can we find empowerment when we see this dynamic at play? And then lastly, I just want to mention maybe a theoretical perspective that we can use when we are dealing with experiences that have connotations with the devil energy here. Cool? Okay, so one of the first ways that we might be thinking about hindering or blocking ourselves when it comes to the devil card is actually in terms of how we vilify either the conscious or subconscious aspects of ourselves that we dislike, think are unlovable, unworthy. Okay, so we really are demonizing those parts of ourselves, whether it is about our appearance or behaviors that we have or fears that we have or things that we did in the past or things that we weren't that successful at. All of that kind of energy, like pushing that stuff down into our shadow because we don't want to see ourselves in a particular light, or we don't want to embrace the fullness of the messiness of what it means to be human moving through this world, and also making, monsters out of ourselves, of our identities, by repressing aspects of self into the shadow. Okay, so that's one of the ways in which the devil card can be expressed in terms of how we relate to ourselves. Of course, it's also about indulging appetites to the extent of making those things grotesque. I especially love the devil card in this particular deck. This is After Tarot, because it's got the lovers down on the floor really getting into it, right? And they're doing it to the distraction or not seeing kind of what's going on around them. Okay, they're so involved in this passionate embrace, and this can be about the ways that we can zero in terms of our appetites and desires without having balance or responsibility to what is going on in our external worlds and the way that we need to show up. And a very silly example I have of this is, I don't know if people eat like Wotsits or Cheetos, but if you've ever had like too much of a thing, right? Like last year I had too much Wotsits and I was like, this is disgusting. Like this thing that I love, that I normally have in my little snack box, I had so much of it that it disgusted me. And this is what I'm talking about, doing things that could be good. Sex is good and healthy. Doing, whether it's food, it can even be exercise, anything that we think is a virtue, doing it to an extent in which it is in excess is what I'm talking about here, that can really make us slaves really to this thing that we're doing repeatedly. Okay, one of the other ways that we can be expressing this devil energy in our personal lives is by relinquishing our power of choice over to others and then participating in the blame game. So some of us do this with our parents, for example. Our parents become this devilish figure in which they did things legitimately. Some of us have had very painful or abusive dynamics with our caregivers, but it's about casting them in this role as having full control over you in your life, and then using that story for you to continue to stay disempowered about how you move through the world and the choices you're making for yourself. It could be your boss, for example, and you feeling like, well, I'm stuck in this job, my boss won't give me, a promotion or won't recognize my value, and so you allow yourself to stay stuck in that power dynamic. So this is one of the ways that actually we become an obstacle to ourselves, because one of the things that's important about the devil card, as much as it is in the lovers, and I bring this up because the lovers is always present in the devil card, okay? They are binary, dual cards in many ways. It's about choice, okay? The lovers is about making a choice as much as the devil. Except when the devil energy comes up, sometimes we're struggling to understand what our choices are. We feel like we have no choices. So this is about reclaiming choices, seeing what is available for us in our liberation, and I'll speak to this in a second, okay? So the other aspect could be also leading a life that is driven by unhelpful fear. And I say that because some fear is necessary and useful. If a dog is chasing you down the road, wanting to chomp at your legs or your arms, the fear that pushes you into action, that adrenaline is good for you, okay? That ego, that self-preservation is healthy, but we want it in balanced measures. And so if we're living a life that is shut down, that is closed off, that is really in darkness because of the fears, the aspersions that we're casting outwards, okay, creating a devil figure in our lives or something that bad that will always happen to us, catastrophizing can be the devil energy here, then this is something we need to overcome, something that we need to be liberated from. So that's the first section. Secondly, of course, we want to think about things in context, because we're not solely responsible for the life experiences that we're having, okay? It's not all you didn't just manifest it all by yourself, and it's not all a creation of your own mind. We are connected, and there are forces outside of you and agendas and higher and lower powers that come together to create this thing called life. And many of us have to recognize, especially when we're having devil experiences, the limitation of our power, okay? So let's have a look at things in a broader context then. The devil card can represent the constraints, right? We're talking about the devil and its legacy in the world. So this is coming to awareness of the social actors and the institutions that have intentions and are designed to entrap us, okay? So whether we can see that as the economic system that we live in, or the isms, the racism, the sexism, the homophobia, whatever it is that we're experiencing along those lines of identity, it can be many things that we're experiencing on a structural level. So the devil card is about awakening as well to those institutions, to those patterns, okay, those things that are established, that are attempting to limit our freedom, limit our access to love and connection with ourselves and each other. This is also about recognizing the construction of the matrix, okay? So this is talking about, there's a biblical scripture I love. It says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And I feel like the devil card represents that shadow, that valley, that construction, that we've been put into a space that is very dense, that can be dark, that can be hopeless at times. But yea, though we walk through these devil experiences, right, where we feel unsure, when we feel afraid, where we feel lost, we don't fear evil, okay? Like, we find the energy of the lovers, like we find the hope, we find the purpose, right? We wake up to ourselves here, otherwise distracted, and recognize the divine guidance, the optimism, the possibility still in our lives. Okay, devil card is also about recognizing where we can feel stuck and limited, so that we can come to the understanding that we need to relinquish something to recover our power. Now, one of the reasons I like the mirroring of the devil and the lovers card is, as I said, there's always the lovers and the devil, typically in the depiction, and they tend to be stuck, trapped, bonded together in some kind of way, as you can see here. And so rather than thinking this, let's begin by seeing the lovers depicted in this card, sorry, I dropped the card, as a reflection of these internal aspects of ourselves, okay, divine feminine, divine masculine, negative and positive polarities in terms of attraction and electricity, what we push out, so what we are creatively expanding into. So when we look at it from that aspect, we want to see the devil card as pointing to times when we are too heavily balanced towards one polarity or the other. Okay, so it can be that we're overly in our masculine energy, we're being very logical and critical and practical to the exclusion of emotion and compassion and intuition and dreaming and thinking outside of the box, okay, thinking through the creative void. Maybe we're really looking at our circumstances and feeling stuck because we're like, this much money, this location, this past experience, and we're like, how do we create something different out of the structure that we have, and we can't see how. And so the devil card can be like, because you're needing more of the feminine energy, you're needing your intuition, you're needing to dream, you're needing to create, you're needing to be more fluid. It can also be the opposite. We can be leaning too heavily into our feminine energy, so we can be disconnected from reality, we can be passive and seeking external saviors and not wanting to empower and liberate ourselves. Okay, we can be lacking a plan, having a vision but not executing anything. So the devil card can actually come up and be like, hey, you might need to balance out some of these the dependencies you have on one aspect of yourself over another. Okay, it can also be talking about a concept of or ideal of love that we might need to be free of. Okay, so it can be in this timing or in this place or with this person or this kind of experience or this much money or whatever it is that we think is joy and liberation can be sometimes too narrow, too finite. And so it's about actually needing to release these set ideals so that we can come into true liberation, letting that go to find a path forward. Of course, it can be letting go of a person, place, or thing. Like I said, in the devil card, they're normally tied together, so you may actually need to relinquish someone to find your freedom. You know, you may need to sever certain relationships with people, not just sexual, but it can be bonds of friendship or family or whatever it is, to find your liberation, because maybe this person is still wanting to stay or has not found the courage or the wisdom that they need to leave, and you can't wait for them. So there can be a kind of, I've got to cut myself free of you in order to be freer on a bigger level. Okay. And then lastly, we can also, this devil card can also be talking about our need to seek help from a higher powerful force, right? Or help outside of ourselves. We can't always do it on our own. We can't always liberate ourselves. Sometimes we need external support if we feel like there is a figure that is above us, something that is too much for us that we need help with. Now, for some of us, that could be therapy, for example, you know, talking therapies, going to get support to untangle ourselves mentally. For others of us, that can be ancestors, angels, and spirit guides. Okay, so wherever it is, it's recognizing when something has become too big for us to carry alone. Okay, so finally then, to wrap up, a theoretical perspective that we can use to kind of think about what it means when we see the devil energy. Let's grab the devil card again. So what I want you to think about is the lovers as this center point, okay? And when I say the lovers, I don't just mean intimate sexual relationships. I mean the concept, the higher purpose, the spark of life, God being love itself, or the universe, or whatever language you want to use. But see it as this center point, this focal point right here. And then you want to think about the devil card then as either extreme of the love experience, okay? So this is it. It's either on one far polarity or the other far polarity. So what do I mean by that? Well, on one hand, you have the lovers in the center. And then on one end of the spectrum where the devil is, you have separation, abandonment, and lovelessness. Okay, so this experience in the world of that level of wounding. And on the far other side of that, you also have addiction, possessiveness, control, negative attachment, and manipulation. So it's not a spectrum that is like, or at least in the theory I'm sharing with you, it's not a linear spectrum that goes like from one point to a high point. It is an expanding one, and we want to keep finding our center, keep finding the heart of the experience. And we can use this paradigm both in our personal lives, but also as social justice actors, right? We can think about when we're creating, when we're attempting to make change, when we're organizing in a communal sense, how can we create things? How can we come from a love-based perspective? How can we do things that make people feel more connected and more purposeful? So I've been Leonanicholeblack. That's been my take on the Devil card for the Arcana Brick Road. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm so glad that I've been able to be a part of this project. It's been really inspiring for me. If you want to follow my journey, it's nicoleblack.com/shop. Of course, you can follow me on Instagram, Leonanicholeblack. And if you want to engage with me for personal readings, I'm available for that too. Much love.